Okay.
That's from a charity match where me and my father actually got to bat together in a partnership. And we're about to fist bump there in the second picture, I think, after I just hit a four.
It is a really good shot.
I think he was quite impressed that day, but no, he wasn't pushy at all with us.
I think you hit a four there, about 8 years old. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
A late cut.
But he talked about that partnership a lot growing up.
Yeah, there's a great scorecard where you have both of their names, S Khan, I Khan, and then me. I think I got out on a duck.
Oh no.
Never a great batsman.
I want to ask a little bit more about his conditions in prison. You spoke a little bit about what it's like inside, but what do you know about how he's coping in there, solitary confinement? If you can describe to us what that's like inside there and how he's doing. I mean, he's a 73-year-old man as well.
The conditions are awful. They're not bad, they're awful. It's,
it's been described as a death cell, the cell that he's in, because I think inmates who have been put on death row have been put in these small cells before with barely any light. Sometimes the electricity's been cut off. Dirty water, as Carson was saying, and just completely substandard conditions that don't meet international law for any sort of prisoner.
So what went through your minds when you saw the images of him that were circulating on social media, that perhaps he'd died or he'd been killed? There were all sorts of rumours swirling because, of course, there was no family contact, even though every Tuesday family members, based on the court, are supposed to see him and make contact with him, and they hadn't for several weeks.
Yeah, incredibly stressful, obviously. Yeah, I went straight onto kind of my family group chat because that's the only reliable source that we have on the ground in Pakistan.
I remember it's just, you go on Twitter and suddenly you see just, Imran Khan dead, his body being transferred to this. It's obviously very jarring and obviously pulls you out of whatever you're trying to do in your normal life, especially how helpless we are over here, not able to do much at all. So it's not ideal.
And what did your aunt say about seeing him after that period when that started to generate a lot of headlines and the international media got involved, the international community got involved? Suddenly she was allowed to see him again. What did she say about how he was?
She reassured us that he was well, he seemed healthy and well, but he was furious about the conditions he's being kept in, and he dictated a tweet, I think through her, or maybe, potentially through her. And I think that tweet has partly led to this reaction from the establishment to completely try and isolate him now.
I also wonder, you talked about the fact that, you guys have been warned not to come, even though the Defence Minister said you're welcome to come and you can visit him. Have you guys tried? Have you tried to engage with the Pakistani government to allow you to go and see your father?
Yeah, we're now planning, because they said it openly, so unless they go against their word again, then we should be hopefully going in January. We applied for our visas, but it hasn't come through yet. We're expecting it to come through, so we're planning a trip in January.
And if you do see him, what are you likely to say? I mean, do you think that you would say, look, you've spent this time in prison, you've done your time, perhaps look at cutting a deal?
What you have to understand is it's his life. It's literally his passion and his goal. He calls it his life purpose, is to help Pakistan rid it of corruption. And so if he just took a deal and came over to us and lived in England, I know there would be this kind of burning desire and this aching that he's has left his country for dead, and he'd be depressed, to be honest. I know he would. This is his goal, and we, as much as we'd love to have our father watching all of our kind of cricket matches or football matches over here, he has a purpose which is far greater. So you can only respect it.
What else would you say to him? I mean, if you could send him a message now through this, what would you say to him?
It's hard not to speak, just to get desperate. I want to know how we can how we can get him out, how we can help, because the main point is we feel so helpless at this point. I mean, there's so much to catch up on, what we've been doing in the past 6 months, how is life with us, and he refuses always to talk about his conditions. He's like, oh, you know, don't worry about me, how's everything? He wants to just kind of take in, absorb as much about what we're doing as possible, so I guess he has something to think about when he's in there, doesn't want to dwell on, you know, his situation. One of the first things you asked earlier, kind of what we'd speak to him about, one of the first things, if it's not the first question, it's the second question, was always, how is your grandmother, whose house it is here, who he loved, you know, tweeted that he loved her like a mother. We haven't spoken to him since she died only a couple of months ago, and I would love to speak to him about that. You know, he called her his mother after his own mother had passed, and their relationship was so close. So I'd love to speak to him about that.
Was he critical of how you guys played cricket?
He was actually quite polite.
Yeah, he really wasn't. No, he wasn't at all, actually. No, he said, you know, you either have the kind of passion to be professional and then he would push us, or if we didn't want to be, then play it for fun and enjoyment. And I think he realized it was probably the latter. And we're now we've gone from, maybe back then we did love it, but not to the degree that we would play it professionally. Now we're both kind of obsessed.
You talked about feeling helpless. I mean, what do you want the international community to do now? What would you like to tell global leaders, people like Donald Trump, for example? You were both in the US recently, and we've seen the evolving relationship between Pakistan and the Trump administration. What would you want to say?
I think at minimum just to make sure that the standards of international human rights are being upheld, and right now they're clearly being violated. And democracy in Pakistan is to see how it's deteriorating. And yeah, essentially we just want to ensure that the basic human rights for our father are being respected, and
implement the court orders, you know, respect the court orders, and respect the rule of law, really, and allow him to see his personal position. That's massive, obviously. Allow, you know, basic human rights. It's those three things.
And also, if possible, independent monitoring of his conditions, because we have no idea what it's like until someone goes to see him and speaks to him. So
I spoke to a representative of the Pakistani government who said to me, you know, we don't have control over what the jail does and the jail staff and the treatment, and also brought up the 200+ cases of corruption against him and various other cases. How do you react when you hear that from the Pakistani government?
I mean, they're all crooks. They are the lowest of the low. They'll do whatever it takes, whether it's torture, whether it's disrespecting democracy and you know, rigging an election. They'll take any sort of deal. They'll and as you see with, you know, with Donald Trump, you know, they elected him as for the Nobel Peace Prize. They'll do whatever it takes to stay in power for wealth and for control. It's the current government and the army are they're laughable, and it's very, very clear to see how corrupt they are if you do the slightest digging. So there's not much you can say other than they're just it's a crooked system run by crooked people.
Yeah, it's not even digging really. It's the international. I think the international media it's been pretty widely reported that the previous elections in February 2024 were rigged. Their mandate, it's not, PTI's mandate was essentially stolen. Everyone knows who the most popular leader in the country is. And
the UN, Amnesty International have all called it an arbitrary detainment.
I want to ask a little bit more about the fact that the army chief Asim Munir, they changed the constitution. He's given himself a lifetime amnesty and immunity. I just wonder, Imran Khan, if he becomes aware of all of these changes, and he may be aware. It's hard to know. what he would be thinking about all of these shifts and changes that we're seeing now in Pakistani politics?
I don't think he'd be surprised at all, because I think it's quite clear that it was heading towards basically what it is now, which is a military dictatorship in everything but name. So I think he probably knows about this already, and part of the reason he's being silenced and isolated is because they know that he's inevitably not going to stand for this.
Do you think he'll ever get out?
Right now, the conditions are getting worse. The people in power are becoming more entrenched, as you say. So it's very hard to see a way out. And a lot of the people we speak to, the kind of advisors, are seeming less and less confident every time we speak to them. So we're now worried we might never see him again. It's good to see this defense minister say, "Oh, welcome, come," because now we actually, we have that recorded. We can go over there and hopefully we can see him. But I still have my doubts.
Yeah, and also the fact that he's not the sort of person who's going to make any compromises or cut a deal. So yeah, at the moment that looks like the only easy route out. But I think international pressure is always an effective way of forcing change in these situations.
I wonder on messages, what you would say firstly to the Pakistani government, and what would you say to the Pakistani people? Because, many say that they are too held hostage by corrupt governments and these authoritarians who are changing their constitution, and it's going down a slippery slope of authoritarianism.
I would say to keep the faith and to keep making noise, even though the government and the establishment are trying to scare them into silence as much as possible. Peacefully protest if you can.
As you say, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of how much you can do in terms of your activism. You have lobbied the UN, and the Special Rapporteur has put out a very strong statement condemning his solitary confinement and saying it's against international law. What next for you guys in terms of what you do, along these lines to try and get the word out there?
I think more media like this to spread the word, and also we're looking to do more advocacy, to do trips maybe to Brussels or Geneva in January to speak to politicians and officials about this situation.
You talk about when you were little, 4 and 6, the conversations that your father had with you. As you were growing up, did you think you would ever be in this position, lobbying for his release from prison? Because, of course, the path that he was going down was always a dangerous path. There has been no leader of the country, a Prime Minister of Pakistan, who hasn't spent time in prison since the creation of the state. It's always been that murky relationship between civilian government and the military and the intelligence agencies of the country. Did you think that you would be faced with this day?
Yes, probably, realistically, because we spent, he especially, my brother, spent a lot of time asking him not to go into politics when there were kind of these dangerous characters killing people consistently. Everyone says, oh, all of these Pakistani politicians, they go to prison. This is just completely different. They're not all tortured in solitary confinement cells and staying there for, upwards of 2 years.
What do you think they're afraid of?
Popularity, yeah.
Yeah. He's the most popular person in the country by a landslide. So the moment he's out, there's no chance they'll hold on to power. So they're desperately clinging on to it, however they can.